Hi, folks. Stephen here. I'm on the phone with Paul Umbach, who is a producer, guitarist. He has actually quite a few talents, but relevant to Pokémon, he is a co-producer and an instrumentalist and background vocalist on Aaron Carter's Have Some Fun with the Funk from the Pokémon the First Movie soundtrack. So, Paul, why don't we just start at the beginning? How did you get into doing music? What was sort of your training? And how did you kind of get into the industry?
Oh, hi, Stephen. Thanks for that. That's awesome. Yeah, I got into the industry just because music was always around in my house. So I grew up as a musician, playing guitar and drums, and then went to school for it. Was kind of the school musician in high school, that type of thing, and produced bands on Long Island. And they came to my studio to record a lot. And then kind of took a job at Jive Records with the request from Steve Lunt, who is a great songwriter and producer in his own right. And we built a little studio in Jive Records studio room. And so I did a lot of work there from 98 to about 2003 or so.
Yeah, Jive Records is a name that I'm sure a lot of the folks at home will recognize as being home to some of the biggest artists of the turn of the century/millennium era. You got to meet quite a few well-known names out there.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Oh, yeah, that part was fantastic. We were mentioning before that, when we signed NSYNC and had to, stop what I was doing for Zomba Publishing, which I had a studio there, so I was always working on some things. And then just like Steve was like, okay, stop what you're doing. We're going to have the boys in NSYNC come in. We're going to listen to some mixes. And so all five of them come into this, production room, and they're all doing the bye, bye, bye dance, and they're all kids. And it was a blast. There was so many people that I met and learned a ton, as being a producer there and kind of taking my angle of things, which I'm mostly a rock guy, a rock pop guy, but sort of always took my angle to the productions. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, absolutely a ton of well-known names from that era. Can you list off a couple songs that you worked on from there that folks would know?
But yeah, some Britney stuff. Like we did, I did vocal work when I first got to Jive with her on When Your Eyes Say It, which was really fun to be in the studio with her after about 2 months worth of, me being at Jive and Steve producing that record and kind of, me being in the vocal booth with her and helping her with some vocals and playing guitar and doing backgrounds and kind of doing the whole track or, working on the track itself and just being like a vocal producer. So that was a great time. But I did so much work there for the publishing company, spent a lot of time with people, even with Max Martin, and who's an absolute genius. And he still is rocking it these days and still amazing. We did all those interludes on Britney's record. And I think on Aaron's record, we had a lot of interludes that went in between the songs that was all done in my studio. And that was a blast as well, just kind of recording and having fun and carrying on. So it was always a good time to have at Jive.
Yeah, you mentioned Aaron there, and of course, he's the lead singer on Have Some Fun with the Funk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that song was recorded well before the movie came out. It wasn't written or produced for the movie. How did it kind of land in your lap then when it was originally recorded?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm trying to think when it was probably the second thing that I did for Jive after the Don Phillips stuff. And Steve had a cassette of a song that he had probably did a work tape of. Don't quite recall how it went, but as far as the lineage, but I think he knew that would be a good song for Aaron, and a party song, just something fun, because that whole record was all about, I think it's Aaron's party, come get it, so it was all about having a good time, and Have Some Fun with the Funk was like, it was a little edgy too. So, and that was always something that you didn't want it to all be so soft, you wanted to have a little bit of edge. So even when you hear that song, when it comes out, I had to take a listen to it again just to familiarize with myself with and have the memories come back a little bit. but it opens with like the some beatbox stuff, and so it's actually Aaron doing beatbox, James D. Train Williams doing beatbox, and then it starts off with that, and then Aaron counts off the numbers, and then there's this big swell and the typical hit, the orchestra hit of the time, and you're into a party, and so that's what I think was sort of the directive that I had probably gotten from Steve back when he gave me his cassette and the idea. So I just started, programming it from there. And back in the day, we would do stuff on drum machine. I was working with Logic Audio, and, Korg Tritons and S6000s and MPCs and all that kind of stuff, all the technical work. Had some fun with some of, we mentioned the ethereal thing before you said, but I had some fun with that because that's kind of my thing. I like putting a little bit of, kind of dust on the ethereal aspect of the tune. So
yeah, it's very much a spontaneous block party type of song in there, because it sort of starts with the beatboxing and then sort of builds up from there. Now, one thing you mentioned D. Train Williams, which of course I think a lot of the folks at home will know is one half of the original Poke Rap as well.
Yeah. And he was just at my house just like 20 minutes ago. So we're still super close. And I've known him for well over 25 years or so.
Yeah, absolutely awesome there. But you did some of the background vocals as well with about a group of about half a dozen folks. What was that kind of like?
Yeah. Well, I definitely, I think we mock some of the party stuff when I would first do the original track, so I think I did like the second verse, I would just sing harmony with him. So when it came time, and a lot of that stuff was recorded in my production studio, as far as like, doing all the rhythm tracks and the basics and the guitars and things. And then we would take those files and bring them to the big studio. And so we did that up at Battery. And that's when we decided we would okay, D-Train was going to be involved, and he brought in a bunch of the other singers. And I think we had done a lot of stuff with a girl named Nikki Gregoroff. And so she was a great singer that we used to use for a lot of our publishing stuff, and just a great artist herself. So, we just brought everybody into the studio to have fun and clap and sing, say little shout outs, and just increase the party vibe of the track.
Yeah, I think you struck a good balance of making it sound like, spontaneous, and not making it sound, though, too polished in regards to some of the backing singers and stuff like that. So that aspect of it ended up working really well. Now, this was recorded it sounds like either late 98 or early 99, if I understand correctly. So it was recorded well before the movie came out. And you're not entirely sure. I asked about this earlier. You're not entirely sure how it ended up there. It was probably some folks talking around, like Steve and maybe D-Train having already had some Pokemon experience. Certainly would have been in the loop there. But you did eventually find out it had gotten selected. I take it didn't seem like you knew a ton about Pokemon at the time. What was that experience like?
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't know much about Pokemon. Maybe from my niece at the time, or just kind of knowing about a little bit about it, but I didn't understand the characters. I think, like you said, I think it was part of, it says 99 as far as the credits go on the album. So I'm not sure when the movie was released. So sometimes those things get kind of, the music is done while the movie's being produced, and then the movie would be released. But, so that could have been the connection. And it was probably, Clive Calder, Barry Weiss, the heads of Jive, and all the other record, because I know Craig Kalman and people from Atlantic were involved in this record. So I'm sure it was like a chatting about who do you got, who's on your roster that could do some music for this. So, and then Steve having this fun song, and then obviously us, putting something that had all that fun party energy together, and a great track, and high energy drums and programming and things like that. So.
Now, despite you not having a ton of knowledge about the franchise, this was still kind of a big deal to you. You have because this was a double platinum album in the United States, you actually have a plaque for this. What was it like getting one of those?
Yeah, that was actually, I think, my first one that I had gotten through my first platinum record that I've ever gotten, and that was fun. Yeah, I think it's a culmination of just, what you like, hard work, and what you have focused on in your career that kind of gives those accolades or, accomplishments that you would get recognized for. I think that's kind of the thing that stands out now. Like when I have it hanging on my little rec room where I have my drums and my piano and stuff. So, it's definitely it's a remembrance of kind of the hard work that you put into getting to those places. So, so that part I have certainly a lot of respect for, and it was fun to listen to the track again. Like I hadn't heard it in such a long time. So, we worked with some really great people on that, like the guys at Battery. My engineer, Tim Donovan, who was always there for stuff. If you look in our credits for Britney and for so many other things that we did, Tim was always a part of our team. He was just a great person to work with. And, again, go down the list of some of the other people, even all the assistants like Charles and Paul Oliveira and those guys. They were always there. They were a great team to work with at Battery. So it's the culmination of that. When you look at the plaque, you're like, okay, I remember those guys. I remember working on that, and that was the fun part of it.
All right. Well, that was a pretty big chapter in your career. Like you said, you were at Jive until about 2003. I mean, at that point, sort of, as it often does, music tastes move in kind of cycles, and things were kind of moving into the zeros with a little bit of a different spin on music there. So you kind of moved on to some other endeavors. What did you do after that?
Yeah. Well, I had worked with an artist named Matt White, and we did probably his biggest song, which is a song called Love, which was in many movies over the course, a lot of quote unquote chick flick movies, but Little Manhattan and What Happened in Vegas and all kinds of other movies, as well as like the McRib commercial, which was kind of interesting. But so I had worked with him and sort of developed his career, and he got signed to Geffen Records. And so we did a record. I did a full out length record with him, and I co-wrote a lot of the songs and produced that. I also had a rock artist named Buddha Head, which was also signed to the Interscope labels, and I did a lot of my sort of the stuff that I was more of my love, my passion music, which was a little bit more edgier and but still having the pop sensibility. And I co-wrote 5 songs with him, and unfortunately that record got released and it's out there, but there's some really good pieces of music on that one, and did that in LA. So I got a chance to really do some great work after my time with Jive. I got into jingle work. I did a huge campaign for Sears, a Good Life song, which made me actually a lot more money than I did when I was at Jive Records. And, in 2005, I had 3 national ads running at the same time, and I was the vocalist on it. So those were very lucrative times for me personally. And so it was great. And it was all, stemmed from my love of pop music and the rock stuff that I've done over the years.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned Vegas. Initially, you had moved and lived in Nashville for a very long time. A few years ago, you did get the opportunity, and you're now living in the Las Vegas area. You did kind of have the misfortune of moving there just a few months before the pandemic hit, which is kind of unfortunate. But what have you been trying to do now that you've moved there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had done some. I had the ability when I was in Nashville. I sort of was working for a company that was doing a lot of radio parodies. And so I did all that stuff and was able to kind of transition to come out here. I think right now what's nice about music in general, and as the technology gets even better, we can do a lot of remote work. So, and I'm actually really excited about that because even though we can't do real time yet, it's not quite there. You can still do video and connective interaction with people in studios, in their own little studios. And a lot of the musicians had to really kind of adapt to that over COVID and the pandemic. And it's been interesting. I'm definitely wanting to up my game personally on that, just because I have this really awesome room. It looks out to my pool. It's beautiful out today, and it does get hot, but 115 is not fun. But you have air conditioning, and you jump in the pool. It's all good. But I think with Vegas, it's really turning into. It's always had great musicians. It's one of our big entertainment areas. There's always incredible players here, and I think slowly but surely it'll turn into even more singer-songwriters coming out here. There's definitely more of there's been a Nashville connection with some of the clubs, and always with Vegas here. So there's, it's definitely a bigger community, a better community than maybe, what you would think Las Vegas is. So I'm trying to meet more people here, get involved with starting some songwriting sessions and things, much to the way they did Tuesday Night Music Club. I would love to do something like that. Some of my dear friends were involved in the Sheryl Crow stuff, and Tuesday Night Music Club idea is such a beautiful idea. Just get somebody together and get people together to make music. I think that can definitely happen here in this town. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's a major entertainment hotspot, and as things hopefully get better, it sounds like you're going to have some more opportunities. Is there anything you've released recently? I've worked on one EP, but I don't want to say recently, but it's something I was definitely proud of. I've released 2 of my own recordings. One was in 2010, so that's not very recent, but it's still representative of something that I do. And I did something about 2018 or so. Working on some new material now. Certainly a lot of sort of film, a little deeper, a little darker. But then every once in a while I'll come and program something fun and do something that's a little more pop. I have a couple of mates that live in Portland, Oregon, that we have a band together called American Lad, which we were doing really well and just prior to 9/11. But we're I think you meant. Did you mean to say? Sorry to interrupt. Did you mean to say just prior to the pandemic?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, actually, yeah, we did stuff when in 9/11 too, and it was like we were ready to get signed, and things were going to happen at that time, and then stuff changed. My buddy Mike is a firefighter, and so and life changed. But now that I'm on the west, not the West Coast, but I'm on the west, we're gonna hopefully we're gonna be doing some more material and kind of resurrect my drumming and sort of get back behind the kid a little bit. So because I do love drumming. So it's fun to just stay fresh, and I was singing a lot over the last, say, 8 years, doing a lot of the radio parody stuff. You probably maybe heard me sing something over the years. Now it's just more about just kind of original and producing some new acts. I'm looking forward to that.
And where can folks find you online?
I have a website, not very good. Maybe I have to really think about doing upgrading that, but at paulumbachmusic.com. My latest EP is on that. I'm on Facebook. I'm pretty much available. I'm going to definitely make sure that I kind of up some of that social media presence. I'm on Instagram as well. So, that's always a tricky thing I'm 53. So sometimes it's like, hey, you gotta do this. And I've always, in funny ways, I've always been sort of the secret weapon of people, being a producer or behind the scenes. And so it's not as comfortable for me to get up in front and self-promoting. But, these days you have to do that. So,
yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Paul. It's been great having you on.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for reaching out, and look forward to hearing it.
This has been Stephen Wright from the Pokepress Studios in Madison, Wisconsin. On the phone with Paul Umbach, the co-producer and a performer on Aaron Carter's Have Some Fun with the Funk.